Sport and Children's Services Committee, which is being conducted from the chamber and remotely through Microsoft Teams. Gaelic translation facilities are available for this meeting. Please make sure you have your headsets available if required. Okay. Please ensure your microphones are off. And before we begin, I will ask the Reverend Bruce Jardine to lead us in prayer. The meeting is now being recorded. Thank you.
Necessary grace this day for the duties that are before us. We pray for wisdom and discussion so that the right decisions may be made. We pray for that spirit of cooperation when difficulties may arise. And we pray thy blessing to be upon these islands in the rising generation, that we may be of those that are looking to thyself, that thou would bless us and that thou would pity us, and that thou would shine on us with thy face, and would be pleased to forgive our many sins. For Jesus' sake. Amen.
Thanks, Reverend Jardine. So you will be well versed on the conduct of the meeting, so I won't remind you of all the details. You'll only to say that in regards to declarations of interest, members must leave the chamber or end the call remotely, and you'll either be asked to come back in or be brought into the chamber again. Finally, a reminder that the meeting is being live streamed and recorded. The recording will be made available on the caller's website following the meeting. Item 4 will be taken in private at the end of the meeting, and prior to moving into private, participants other than relevant officer and members will be asked to leave the meeting. I'm ruling item 8 as urgent so that it can be considered before the next meeting. The other thing I want to do is I want to bring item 10 forward, if everyone's happy with that, to after performance management, because we have a guest. Kathleen Johnson's is joining us online, and she's giving a presentation. So I just want to allow her, just if she needs to get away after the meeting, that she doesn't have to stay and listen to all of us for the rest of the day. So if everyone's happy with that. We'll start with the minutes of the meeting of the 20th of September 2022 for approval. Are they approved? Do you have it? Everyone happy with that? Approved. Thanks very much. Declarations of interest. Members are asked to declare any interest they have on any items of the agenda. It will be helpful if members express why they are declaring an interest in the item concerned. Members in the chamber, please do so now by pressing your microphone or remotely through Teams by using the raised hand function. Please ensure that declaration is repeated prior to the relevant item and adhere to the protocol as previously indicated. So we'll start with performance management, and the report provides an overview of the Education Skills and Children's Services Department business plan progress and relates to performance for Q2 of 21-22. And Neil MacLeod will speak to the report and answer any questions. Thanks, Neil.
Thank you, Chair. As you say, this covers the three main service areas within the department, which is Children's Services, School and Community Learning, and also the Directorate. In relation to Children's Services, we have two actions, and both of these are on target. Some of the key activity that's taken place in the Q2 included a multi-agency child protection audits, which resulted in good practice, but also some areas for improvement. Some staff appointments have been made, and that's detailed in the report. And there's been continued work and progress in the neurodevelopmental pathway with colleagues from the Health Board. We have 9 KPIs that we report on in that service area. 4 of these are reported annually, so that won't be until the end of the financial year. 3 of them are on target, 2 are currently off target. These 2 are the percentage of looked after and accommodated reviews completed within statutory timescales. Now that stands currently at 50% against a target of 80. However, that's been quite an improvement from the first quarter, which was 38.46%. So positive news there. Percentage of initial assessment reports and social background reports submitted to the Scottish Children's Reporter within the 20 working days. Again, that one is, off target. However, there was a really high number of report requests during this quarter. And as people are aware, there was a spike in in some youth activity, which resulted in a lot of requests and also coincided with the summer holidays. And again, the positive side in that is the number of incidents has reduced over the past 2 months. In relation to Directorate, we have 9 actions. 5 of these are service actions and 4 are related to internal audit actions. 2 of these internal audit actions have now been closed off and all the other actions are on target. Key activity, this service area in the last quarter included a pre-visit to Guernsey by the WIGA, the Western Isles Games Association. In terms of library and conservation, I wish copies of the Highland News sent away to Edinburgh for conservation and digitalisation, and that has progressed well. The Eclipse system, which is the recording system for children and children's services, is fully underway, and reports are continued to be developed as time goes on. Scottish Child Payment, bridging payments and summer holiday free school meal payments were issued to all eligible pupils. This Directorate reports on 12 KPIs, and again 7 of these are annual ones, report at the end of the year. 3 require monitoring, and which means that they're just off target, but just to keep an eye on them. 1 is off track, and that's to do with the percentage of complaints concluded within 20 working days. At the moment, it stands at 40% against a target of 80%. However, the numbers are quite small, so they can be skewed quite easily by just 1 or 2. 3 stage 2 complaints were concluded in the last quarter. 1 of them was delayed due to the school holidays. So when you get complaints coming in just at the time of the school holidays, then if you need to interview teachers or anything like that, you've lost 8 weeks straight away, 6 to 7 weeks straight away. 1 of them is delayed due to finalising our resolution. There's more of a focus now on looking for resolutions to complaints rather than worrying about sort of finding the complaint upheld or not upheld. So that's quite a positive story, is that. So that's where we're at with the Directorate one. Schools and community learning, 6 actions in that area, 5 service actions and 1 related to internal audit, which has now been closed off, and the remaining service action, all the service actions are on target. Some of the key activity in the last quarter included the draft Gaelic language plan prepared and approved by members. GME enrolments up to 54%. So again, a positive story for Gaelic. 2 Gaelic vans have been delivered. And there's been an e-Ceilidh book of songs and tunes have been printed and sent out to schools. There was also 2 Gaelic presentations for the Scottish Learning Festival. These have been filmed and edited and used. Also been a pilot live stream Parent Dispatch broadcast. That was down to Barra. And again, positively made there. And the adult learning team is working with Library and Health Promotion on our Wonder Bags project, which is bags where you can cook with very economically. 27 KPIs for school and community learning, 26 are reported annually, and these are predominantly to do with attainment and in relation to literacy, numeracy and all these. The remaining one is off track, and that's related to preschool establishments inspected by the Care Inspectorate that have all the indicators good or above. It stands now at 40% against a target of 80. In the last quarter, well, 4 inspection reports published, 2 of them where all the indicators were good or above. The other 2 where there was 1 that wasn't. So it's quite a challenging target to achieve, because generally speaking, you have four key indicators that are inspected at that time. So to have all of them good is quite a high bar that we're setting, but looking to get to there. Further on the report, the local government benchmarking framework priorities for improvement in relation to children's services. Some of the key activity in that quarter was that draft guidance related to improving the percentage of LAC reviews and looked after children reviews completed within timescale. It's been developed with staff and service users. And also an outcomes framework has been developed and training scheduled for that. In relation to schools, predominantly to do with literacy and numeracy. There's been more detailed analysis and prioritisation of improvement for literacy and numeracy using the latest Insight data. Insight is just again a database where information is stored and can be extracted. There's been continued school visits by the attainment advisor, meeting with senior managers in schools and supporting them in raising attainment. Departments of faculties in schools are also working on pupil level analysis, and also the final versions of the school improvement plans have been completed and submitted. In relation to risk management, the details are at 8.1 to 8.4. Their risks are reviewed on a regular basis. There's been no change in risk levels in the last quarter from Q1. In terms of financial performance, the position at the end of Q2 is set out at 9.1. And finally, in relation to freedom of information requests, the numbers have been again quite high in Q2. We actually received 78 FOIs in Q2 compared to 41 in the same period last year. So quite a substantial amount of work in some of them to pull the information together. 75 FOIs responded to in Q2, with 80% of them responded to within the 20 working days. So happy to answer any questions, or colleagues will be able to support me if they can.
Thanks, Neil. Councillor, do anybody has any questions? Councillor McCormack.
Chair, your advice, I wish to raise the matter of the library service. Is this the appropriate point?
Yeah, it's as good as time as any. Yeah, why not?
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. The library service was inherited just recently by the Education Service. And so clearly the Education Service has not had much opportunity to build it up. But I'm very concerned about the library service, and having discussed it with other members, I find that they are concerned about the service too. It's one, for me, of the key services that we should offer in the Western Isles. We have just lost our head of libraries. Now, Mr. MacLeod advises me that that post will be indeed filled, and that perhaps we have another qualified librarian, but 2 qualified librarians for the whole of the Western Isles is just quite frankly not enough. And I am concerned that the library service is under-resourced significantly, and I think it's a matter for the budget setting to ensure that the Education Department has sufficient monies to run the library service. It would be wrong for us to deplete it any further than is currently the case.
Thanks, Angus. Does someone want to answer that one?
I believe, mapping that. I mean, Tolly, Christian Recklers, Tassin, the kind in the lower land, we can crash a nice taggers, a deal, a couple of Clemens Milne, who Madison Douglas the Durst, I guess, Levy, bring this skipper, say on the house in the hood, Buyan, as Vaun at the Buil, Agus, look up na Carla, so in Dochas Kennyhug, a main and early, so can't a doya Durst. I have me kunjach and I couldn't get the hood to ye and a listen budget and a hacking you can either, so Agus. Has een ding het toch het al je op het realig te listen de leerlijn hakken agus kent maar af ik in kop het gehad is een skaltje agus kent is in de leerlijn stjorn naar kudjuk maar die ene heeft meer hij has een ding het in is een plaats geschalten agus we met je zoelige gedrag hakken in de leerlijn hoe maar vasteltje ooit een fatje gehad het te doen als een peu voor de betonje krinje agus voor de beginnen taal toen je sterk en de leerlijn zo Hashin a canted, I guess because you can imagine your I believe.
Thanks, thanks, Director. Yeah, it was just to follow up. We recognise that that's been an issue, and I met with the head librarian about a month or 2 ago, and we recognise there's quite a serious issue here, and that we need to deal with that. And so with the MALG, and we're actually going to sit down and look at a whole review of the whole system, the whole library sector, and just see how we can make changes to improve it. Councillor McCormack.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy with the response. The only thing at the back of my mind is, do we need to do something during the budget setting to ensure that the library service is satisfactorily funded.
Well, I mean, that's obviously something for us as councillors to look at as well. So, I mean, we can look at doing some work on that before the budget setting comes through, and then it's for you guys to sort of look at what we can do and what kind of money we can actually put towards it. Let's see who comes up first. They both come up together, so we'll just go with Councillor Frances Murray, please, first.
Ladies first.
Ladies first, yes.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks to Mr MacLeod for his very full report. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions relating to 6.2, 6.3 and 6.8. On 6.2, I wanted to ask if there was evidence of non-attendance, non-school attendance being spiking after the lockdowns. And on 6.3, lack reviews on background reports, and 6.8 complaints. There's obviously always going to be a bit of a mismatch in time with these things because of school holidays. And you mentioned the percentages that when been met in time because of school holidays. Is there anything that could be done to address that? And perhaps, we're talking about two systems, the Eclipse and CMIS, and if Children's Services staff had access to CMIS, perhaps they could be looking at some of these reports during the summer holidays so they don't fall behind, rather than waiting for guidance teachers to do them when they come back from holiday. And just before I finish, I'd strongly endorse Councillor McCormick's comments on the value of libraries. Thanks.
Thanks, Francis. Who wants to come in on that one? Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If I start off on the reports submitted to Scrown Time and our target there, and I think it's very important that we strive to achieve that target. It's an important target, but by doing so, we have to be mindful that we don't dilute the quality of reports to Scrown. These reports are critical to understanding what's taking place in a child's life. I suppose I've worked at a time where our priority was submitting reports on time to the detriment of the quality of reports, and then that became an issue. So we are heading in the right direction. The quality of our reports, and this is not according to myself, this is according to the Children's Reporter, and a recent meeting I had with children's panel members, is very good. And as an example, the Children's Reporter gets to see reports from other areas as well as Western Isles, and says the reports she receives from the Western Isles are as good, if not better, than all of many others. So that is a process we're actually going through at the moment, is trying to get somewhere close to the 80% target whilst not diluting the quality of the reports that we're submitting on time. In terms of lack reviews, again, that is an area of improvement. I think we've been too obliging at times, to be honest with you, and understandably so. We've too often, I suppose, rearranged lack review dates to accommodate families' needs. Some of our parents, for example, could be working offshore or, out with the Western Isles, and we've had to change dates to try and accommodate their time at home. We've changed dates to accommodate annual leave and school holidays and so on and so forth. In terms of school holidays, I've instigated what I hope will be a solution that doesn't involve CMIS or Eclipse. It is far more elementary than that, and that is stop arranging lack reviews during the school holidays. So that has been decided and has been implemented. If there are times we have to arrange a lack review during school holidays, and that can happen, it's important that we communicate with the schools beforehand, and I am happy with a written response. It's great to have, for example, a teacher or a senior member of the school team at the meeting in person, but I am equally satisfied with a well-written submission, for the LAC review. Indeed, and I've seen this over the course of many years now, these are children's meetings, and now there's a tendency to invite as many people as possible to them, it seems. That is not child-centred. We need to keep the number of adults at these meetings to a minimum and try and create an atmosphere in these meetings where children can have a meaningful participation, not entering a meeting where you've got up to 8 adults, some of whom are not known to them, discussing them. That's not conducive to the type of environment children will feel supported in. And there was 3 points, Councillor Murray, and forgive me, I can't recall the third one, or was there 2?
Too many mics on, someone can switch up. That's it.
The first one was about whether there'd been a spike in non-attendance following the lockdowns that you were aware of amongst that particular group of pupils.
I don't actually have that information to hand, but I'll do some work on that, Councillor Murray, and get that out to members.
Thanks, Neil. Is that all right, Francis? Is that, yeah. Okay. And I think Ray was next. Ray, please.
Thanks, Chairman. Yeah. Yeah, following on from what Councillor McCormick said, I'm extremely disappointed to hear this, and although maybe not so surprised. I think the last time I asked information on the library, that the number of people employed in that section was 14, which is a third down on what it should have been, 21 to 14, obviously. So yeah, I agree that, you know, that this really has to be looked at urgently. And I hope that a new head is appointed urgently. I was going to ask another question. The question I was going to ask was about and this may, if I'm bringing it up in the wrong place, it might be for Piana, the state of the new sports facility at the Stornoway Primary. I wonder how that is progressing.
Okay, thanks. Do you want to come in on that, Don, please?
Yes, Chair, the work continues in preparation for the delivery of the project at Stornoway Primary. Currently, we are working with colleagues in Asset Finance and Resources to complete the final design scoping ahead of submission of statutory consents. And the timescale at the moment for the project is for consents to be concluded in early 2023, with contract award ahead of the spring, and construction commencing approximately around about Easter time. The timescale of that is important in terms of the nature of the construction of the building being a fabric tensile steel design, and requires for the fabric to be able to be installed over the summer months. So the scheduling of the works is intended to make sure that the groundworks are completed in early spring, so mid-spring more likely, sorry, with then the steel frame and fabric tensile structure going up over the summer, completed in autumn in that stage, and then internal fit out and completion of the building for late 2023 is the current expected timescale.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. So it appears that it's running on time from what was previously quoted.
Is that all right, Ray?
Yes, as per the schedule at the moment, the technical input is indicating that we should be able to stick to the timescales I've just described there. Obviously, there are variables in terms of securing consents, appointment of contractors, securement of and procurement of the building construction itself, and then the vagaries of weather. But the schedule at the moment is expecting to be able to be delivered as I just described, aiming for completion late 2023 with full occupancy for the start of the third term in January 2024.
Thanks, Donald. Callum?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Neil, for very comprehensive report, and Ms. Murray already has asked one of the questions about target setting, and Jack has answered that very comprehensively and very well done as well. It's to do with 613. I would like to look at as well, which is again, it's to do with a target of 80% and an achievement at 40% for good or above. Looking at it, that seems to be quite a low percentage at 40%. Is it because there's only a few establishments inspected? Because if you're only inspecting 4 or whatever, it's therefore, if you get 1 or 2 out of that, there is obviously to be a downplay of 80%, from 80%. That's the first one. The next one is to go on, if you can answer that one first of all, Neil.
Someone's, yes, Nori, can you switch off your thing? Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's exactly that, Councillor McLean. It is that we've in total in the year so far, there's only been 5. So there was only 1 in the first quarter, and that one had 1 indicator didn't achieve good or better.
Yeah.
And we've had 4 in quarter 2, 2 of which have achieved good or better in all the indicators, and 2 of which have missed out on 1 of them. So yeah, it is as I mentioned, it's skewed really badly, can be skewed really badly with the numbers being so low. So it'll be interesting to see as things go through the year and more inspections takes place, how they go with them. Having said that, the inspectorates do tend to adjust the bar, if you like, for these. I think with school inspections have been the same, where what might have been a very good in a previous year might not quite be very good just now. So we have to take these things into account as well.
Absolutely. I was going to mention that good nowadays is not what good was 10 years ago. I'm afraid it's very, very much downplayed now, and that's to do with HMI's inspection. The other one is to do with the setting of targets in 7.2. Quite ambitious to set a target for 2030 when we're only in 2022. But I'm looking at some of them, and particularly in relation to literacy is particular. And I'm looking at 2022 at an achievement of 68%, a target of 68%, which is in fact quite a low bar. I'm sure many of you would agree 68% is a fairly low bar. And then to say that you're going to try to achieve 80% by 2030 is really going up 6-7 percentile points, which isn't huge. But when you're starting at a low basis, are we setting our bars too low?
Thank you, Chair. The rationale was to initially look at where the baseline was at that time. So these were from 2021, 22 or 2020, 21 figures that were the initial baseline. These targets are initially made to look at getting, first of all, to the Scottish average, and then as close as possible to the, if you like, the top, if we can. The reason they've been set that long is because it's in Audit Scotland and local government benchmarking framework. We've been told by the auditors that we should be setting it up to that date. So that's why it's such a long term that it's been done for, and it's tried to not create unrealistic targets year on year as we go. So it's faced that way, but the aim is to at least get to the Scottish average, ideally to be in the top 4 or 5% of council. That's the sort of aim for
that's
it.
the rationale. Thanks. The other one is, just a quick one, is who is the attainment advisor? Who is this wonderful person? I take it. Is it you, Neil? Or who is the responsible person?
Agule uterus an alappe ha nech kornlich jachke sefer John de de fern ha cúpa a gála má lappas a cúpa go tlúála í me de léir a stáil. So hu chéis me géidir vekah ha mis buineach na háú an na hacannes na heile níir chan il clown an na galig an na príomh hún sa céad I gáil steach so et spe an clúni go atáan clownna go cumatach nach il bunting an na háú na seo achas sin fiochan dí dáin ein fer bí clown le galig dat is steir príomh hún sa céadach sé opa a sin fiochan dí an o sin ach sé John de Fern of fet Carlach Jack.
Thanks, Liam. Is that all right, Callum? Yep. Are there any other questions? Oh yes, Nori. How can we forget Nori? Sorry, Nori, man.
Very easily forgotten. Don't worry.
I've actually written it down here and I still forgot it.
No, thanks, Chair. I'm going to drag you right back to Councillor McCormack's original observations about the library service. Judging from the small straw poll we had in here prior to the meeting, I think it's widely accepted that within the Comhairle, most of us are fully supportive of the library service. We've seen, particularly over the last 5 years since I've been involved in the Comhairle, a fight to preserve particularly the mobile library service, but we're always aware of the ever-changing nature of where the library service was and its position within the community many years ago, and with the digital advances that have happened over the last 10, 20 years, the need for it to keep pace with where we are in the world with access to technology and digital archiving, etc. So we're very supportive, I would like to think, as a Comhairle of the library service. But over the last 5 years, we have been under-resourced. We've seen that in terms of staff and the money probably we've put into the library services. And one of the things we spoke about, and I don't know if any movement's been made on it, unfortunately, I don't think much has been done, probably as a result of being under-resourced and understaffed. We spoke about maximising the revenue that the library service could possibly derive from its own archives. We have a huge heritage within the islands as well that can be pulled upon to maximise in revenue. And we spoke about digitally archiving the Gazette. At one point that was mentioned, and I think the Gazette was very open to some kind of progress with that so that folk can have access to all the back copies of the Gazette, plus all the back copies of all our local community magazines and pamphlets, etc. I think if we're looking for a new head of library services, I don't know if are we looking for the head of library services, combining that particular skill set as a librarian with somebody who can look into the commercial viability of taking these things forward and progressing digitally archiving the vast resource we have here so that people can access them, and obviously monetizing that as well. It doesn't need to be huge amounts of money, but it could probably wash its own feet, you know. And I think it's vital. We're talking about 5 years here since this was first mooted, that we maximise the revenue the library service could derive and help itself. So I would hope that the skill set of the new head of libraries would be one that would encompass somebody who knows how to, you know, progress what we've talked about. I don't know if we have ever actually started it, but we need to progress digital archiving, I think, of particularly the local newspaper, community newspapers, etc., and also maximise the resource that we have down in the library itself and make it more publicly accessible and maybe gain some revenue from that as well. So, I mean, I think the broad consensus here is forever to support libraries, but we need to help the libraries help themselves, and we can only do that by putting funding in. I think it's incumbent upon us, if we want to derive the maximum income from the service, we need to put money into it in its originality. You know, so we have to maybe a budget setting consider this. I know the ball game changes completely when it comes to budget settings. You know, and completely different group of people go out of the room and come back in again. So, you know, I think we need to be mindful when it does come to budget settings. If we're going to do something with the library service, there needs to be some kind of investment. So I fully support what Councillor McCormack said, and backed by, I think, Councillor Murray and Ray as well. So, yeah, all for libraries.
Okay, thanks, Nori. Yeah, I mean, obviously, from what we're hearing now, is obviously it's quite an interest in getting something done. So, I mean, as us as a team, that's something we've got to look at and obviously maybe put some sort of priority into now to see what we can do and look how we can take it forward. So thanks. Yeah. Can I just bring in Councillor McNeill, please, first?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
I'm not a member of your committee. I fully support what my colleagues have said as regards libraries. In the last term, it was a much discussed topic, and particularly around the library vans, where it became a bit of a contentious point at times. But as we move on, I think we all realise the importance of libraries. Earlier on this month, Councillor Hussein, the Vice Chair, visited Castleby School and the community library hosted within the school. It was a bit of an eye-opener to see the amount of buckets in corridors that were out for collecting water. I haven't seen anything to say where we are with the Castleby School campus project. Is it possible that I could get some reassurance that we're still fully committed to the project and the project is still on time to start next summer, as well, I'm led to believe anyway. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor McNeill. I'll just bring in the Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chair. There's a full report on the community campus on the Policy and Resources Committee agenda following last week's meetings of the project board. So I think all questions will be answered there, but the point Mr. McNeill makes is a good one. That is one of the reasons why we need a new school in Castleby, and that Castleby School, of course, has been top of the priority list, whether we were delivering it through the campus project or not, for many years. So there'll be a full report on that at Policy and Resources Committee on Wednesday.
Thanks, Chief
Thank you.
Executive. Thank you. I'll just bring in Kenneth next.
Hi there. It was just about the libraries. It's more just highlighting something that I don't think should be forgotten, is that the libraries are used by many people in the communities for accessing the internet. And I know it's not strictly related to education, but given with the way the sort of cost of living crisis is right now, if you want to access benefits, you have to be online. And just saying, lots of people use the public libraries to do that. If they don't have access to that, then they simply will not be able to access any of that help, which then falls on us anyway. Just hoping that side of things is kept in mind when talking about investment, to make sure that public infrastructure is still there. That's all.
Oh, thanks, Kenneth. Yep, we'll look at that as well. Yep. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Chair. Not a member of your committee. Just 2 or 3 points on the libraries. I would like to commend the departments and City Go, the libraries, for the work they have done. From an audit point of view, we have had reports coming to audit, and we still do have on progress on libraries, and it has moved quite a bit since education took over. But it is a report that we do keep and want to keep coming back to audit. We're satisfied that everything's been carried out in a meaningful way. On the library side of things, I would like to see maybe a report showing footfall of pre and post COVID on our libraries, including mobile library vans, and that may be something that might be worth feeding back into the budget board. And the other point I was going to make was on the FOIs, which seems to be quite high at 73. I think Mr. McLeod said it was for the quarter. If we replicate that across the council, it seems a lot of time on FOIs. This is something that we could take maybe as a council and start charging for FOIs. I notice some other councils are looking at that at the moment through budget pressurisation and what have you. I see the Chief Executive's shaking his head. So
I'm afraid that's not a lawful option that's open to us, Chair, unless the inquiries are of considerable complexity.
Okay. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, sorry for coming in again. It's to do with the next question I've got. It's to do with adult learning and transport. It's really, when I look at 9.1 in particular, the costs going to transport and to adult learning and so on. I've got a member in my constituency who's got a son, 33 years of age. He's disabled, and he's trying to get access to his learning in the Lewis Castle. And he's been told that the best way to do it is to get a bus from Tolsta using his Young Scot card. But that's no use. The bus doesn't go to the castle. The bus goes in the town. And he can't get from the town up to the castle. So this parent, his mother passed away last year, this lad, and his father has to take him every time he's in the castle. That's 3 times a week, up from Tolsta right up to the castle. And he's not getting any help. I say there's something fundamentally wrong, I would say, with this happening, because this is a man, an adult, trying to access learning, and it's prohibitive, and especially nowadays, for the parent to be. So I'm just saying that, is there some way that we can assist this family?
Tapleif, ga sin na súla sin go dtí go ar a farach mé sin ach festin é fallh linne mí ein sníal agus bríine sin is skippe sí sin de tekan is kutie am dá sa bí.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry. Right. So, Councillor McNeil, is that a legacy hand? Is it? Tam, is that legacy hand? Thank you. Yeah, obviously.
Yes.
Right.
Sorry.
That's no worries. No. Right. I think that's. Is there anyone else? If there's no one else, we'll move on to item. I mean, as I said, we'll bring things forward, and we'll move to item 10 next, please. So, item 10 is the Northern Alliance Regional Improvement Collaborative update. And this report details information in relation to the Northern Alliance Regional Improvement Collaborative and shares the Impact and Assessment Report 21-22 and Phase 4 Delivery Plan 22 to 25. I would like to welcome Kathleen Johnson to the meeting, who will provide a brief presentation. Before Kathleen begins the presentation, I will ask Mr. William MacDonald to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll speak in English so that Kathleen will pick up on my few comments. Just we've been working with the Northern Alliance for a number of years now, and Kathleen is a quality improvement manager with the Northern Alliance, and she works closely with our colleagues in the Western Isles. Stephen Graham, who's at the meeting. Stephen is the head of school at East Gull, and David Downham is also in the chamber, is a digital deputy head, and he's based in Uist. So Kathleen is going to look at, following on from our last meeting, members felt that they wished more information of what the Northern Alliance was actually doing within our own schools. So Kathleen will give us a brief presentation on how the Northern Alliance are adding value to our schools, and then happy to take questions that any of the team here present can answer, or we'll take them away with us and we'll come back to you. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. Welcome, Kathleen, and just ready to give you a presentation when you're ready. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for the opportunity to come along this morning. So I'm just going to share my presentation just now. So hopefully you can see that presentation there. So we'll begin by just drawing attention to the vision that we have for the Northern Alliance, which is to develop a culture of collaboration, sharing expertise and creating local and regional networks, all to improve the educational life chances of our children and young people. And when we have been looking closely about how we have been working with the Western Isles and colleagues in the Western Isles, it's very much about how we've done that through developing our culture of collaboration and building those networks. At a time when budget pressures are extreme, when we're just in the midst of recovering from the pandemic and indeed still outbursts that we are grappling with, to duplicate our efforts or indeed not to have impact is not acceptable. So I'm hoping that as a result of this presentation, you're able to see that we have really worked closely with schools and with learners to see the real impact at class level and at learner level. So I'm going to pass on to my colleague David, who's going to tell you a wee bit about what the Northern Alliance is.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, Kathleen. This next slide, for me, I'm a visual learner. I'm sure there's other people who are as well. I think it really demonstrates what's really important about the Northern Alliance. We've got 8 local authorities that we're working closely with, and they cover almost all the island communities across Scotland, cover almost all the rural areas across Scotland, the majority of which are all quite far away from the central belt of Scotland. So if we're looking to connect and collaborate with other local authorities, these are the local authorities who have similar challenges to us, and also that they're finding innovative ways of overcoming these challenges. So I just think that kind of demonstrates it quite clearly. I'll just pass you back over to Kathleen.
Thanks, David.
Okay, so for us to be able to make sure that what we do actually does lead to impact, I'm afraid I'm going to be sharing one model and one strategy, but that's the only one as part of the presentation. But it's a really important one, because it's some people say to us, well, what's the point in counting the number of people that are connecting with you? But that's really about where we start, how we begin to connect with people and understand what it is that learners and teachers are really looking for, so that how we support them is relevant and meaningful. So connecting is our first part of our strategy. And then it's about collaborating, so how we're getting to deepen those connections and build relationships with people. And it's through those relationships and building trust that you start to get to share practice, share what's working in our schools, across schools, and start to learn together. From there, going into sharing ideas, what's working well in our schools, and then coming together to think about new solutions to common challenges. That's when our ideas start to generate. And I'm really looking forward to sharing with you some of the ideas that were born in the Western Isles and are now being shared across the Northern Alliance. And of course, that's reciprocal. It works both ways. We take those ideas, it's not good enough. And I think in the past, we've taken ideas and gone in straight into sharing widely. But we're taking these ideas and testing them to see if they actually do lead to improvement. So that's the next stage in the model. And then the final part is when we've got these ideas that really are leading to improvement and impact. And that's when we develop these stories of improvement, those case studies. And we've got some really great stories to share with you as part of this presentation today. David?
So the first of these stories, we're talking about how we connect with other people. So you'll see from the statistics on the screen there that we had 24 teachers from the COLA last year connecting and collaborating across the Northern Alliance. 84% of the teachers stated that they could confidently apply their new learning. 100% of teachers stated that the new learning has increased their understanding. So we're saying that the numbers aren't as high as we would have wanted for last year, but that's increasing. But all of the people that say that they have connected or collaborated in some way or other, they're passing on these improvements to the young people in the classroom. And I think that's really the important part. Everything that we're going to say to you today always has to relate back down to what's happening in the classroom and the opportunities for the young people. People who are interested in money might like this next statistic, which is that 155 teachers registered for the World Education Summit. The World Education Summit, we're talking about connecting across the world. That was the leading educators across the whole world. And you can have access to that online. That's a paid resource, but it was paid for by the Northern Alliance. So all of the teachers within the COLA could have access to that resource. And it would have effectively cost £46,500 if they'd all paid their way for that. And also just to make sure that everybody realises that all 4 clusters within the COLA have all had schools engaging directly with the Northern Alliance over the last year or more. So it's right the way across from north to south. And as we move on to the next slide, we're looking at how we actually collaborate across the Northern Alliance. So 92% of teachers reported that professional learning is providing new opportunities for collaborative working. So 50% of the caller teachers have actually signed up to do the subject support groups. Now, these subject support groups are for any teacher specifically within their subject to be able to go on, engage, look at moderation, look at assessment, look at what's going on within the classroom and discuss with other professionals. I'm a PE teacher and I've been to one of these subject support meetings, and I had the principal assessor for higher physical education who was actually at it. That's the go-to man for the whole of Scotland. And he was sitting there talking about how it impacts him within his own classroom. And then he was switching to quickly talk about what the SQA stance is and how people can kind of engage properly with the process to maximise the opportunities for the young people. And that's the sort of engagement that you probably wouldn't even get from official SQA events, because SQA events are quite often one way. There'll be a lot of information that they're giving you, but there's not a lot of opportunity to actually discuss and question and query certain processes. But that's the type of flexibility that you can have within these subject support groups. But when we're talking about collaborating, it's not just talking on one level of teachers. We're actually talking at kind of different levels. So we'll have central teams who are working together to look at local, regional and national policy. How are they collaborating together to make sure that they're all on the same page as far as assessment and moderation and school improvement is concerned? But also, if you look at the directors and heads of service, they're collaborating as well. And they meet every 2 weeks to share approaches to challenges, might be to do with COVID recruitment or retention. And you'll see the poster boy for the director, William MacDonald, in the picture there. He creeps up all the time in these pictures, actually. Not too sure why, but I'll pass on to Kathleen.
Thank you, David. So as we said from our strategy, our model, what we're heading for is when we can start to generate these ideas for improvement and how we are being able to work together to problem solve and to try and overcome the challenges that we all face. And some of those ideas that we can share here, and you talked earlier about GME and the fact that that is a priority that sits within the Western Isles Improvement Plan. There was a really nice project that I'm going to talk about in a wee while around about multi-agency collaboration. So working with speech and language colleagues from the Western Isles and with education colleagues within Gaelic medium education to develop a resource for teachers in early level. Really, really powerful. We had a brilliant example of collaborative inquiry. So that's when people come together to work out and find new ways of working. And that was around about early and first level and play pedagogy. So really important for really improving outcomes in relation to care inspectorate results. So that was a really successful project. And then also for the other end of our teaching scale, looking at the offer for our senior phase young people and how we're widening that curriculum offer through being more creative, looking at alternative pathways and what we can offer online. And then finally, what I'd like to share is how we contributed through the region to the development of the Regional Improvement Plan. This year, we went to the whole of the Northern Alliance and we asked colleagues, what matters to you? What's really important to you? And what would you like us to work together on over the years ahead? And the wee stickies that are there are comments from our learners, from our young people. They're actually, you can see in essence, they're really telling us that when you break down barriers, you can work harder. And working together is very important because you can problem solve better and have more ideas. And if you believe in one another, it's easier to connect and work with each other. If you believe in each other, the outcome will be better. Some really great piece of advice from our wee people. The next part is the exciting part. This is when we're really getting into how are we going to lead to improvement and impact. And this is where we focus on how are we learning together? How are we measuring the impact? And then how are we spreading what works? And you can see here that a colleague from the Western Isles is talking very positively about a piece of work that was in relation to the development of skills and professional learning for skills, and about how it was forward thinking and sat really nicely with a national report that's looking at how Scottish education should be reformed. So thinking about that opportunity for colleagues within the Western Isles to be at the very pulse of what's happening within Scottish education. And so that our voice, the voice of remote and rural and island communities, can be very much heard in the shaping of national policy. So this story is from early learning and childcare and primary. And here we have a project that we were working on with schools and nurseries from across the Northern Alliance, and almost a third of the schools represented within this particular piece of work came from the Western Isles. It was pretty much sector leading in the sense that the case studies, as I said, that's how we're sharing what works. The case studies were shared as are now shared as part of a national resource through Education Scotland, who've taken what we've done in the Northern Alliance and have shared it on the national platform. And indeed, Stornoway Primary was represented, I think, in the Scottish Learning Festival and talked about their experience as part of this project. And you can see that it spans from play pedagogy in Gaelic medium education through to curriculum improvement, building resilience through play, and improving attainment in maths through play. And we've got representation right the way from the north to the south of the Western Isles. And each one of those case studies talks about the direct impact that this activity had on the wee people in the classrooms and in the nurseries that were engaging as part of this project. David?
Thanks. This next example is one that shows the kind of two-way nature of working with the Northern Alliance and the Collar. So there was an early years resource that was created, a ThingLink, which is a kind of online digital resource that can be accessed and have links and data and information inside it that people can access. That was to do with Gaelic medium education in the early years. So the expertise actually came from within the Collar, and then it was created and developed and spread out across the Northern Alliance. And it just shows how little pockets of expertise in different areas across the Northern Alliance can be used to really create resources and opportunities for people from possibly a long way away.
Absolutely. And the fact that this is, as we've said earlier, is a key priority for Western Isles, it's just fantastic to see how this resource and through colleagues working together within Gaelic medium education across the Northern Alliance can really support one another in being able to take this amazing provision forward.
So I've mentioned already about the secondary subject support groups and about how there's access to them for everybody and what it actually is like when you're there and the opportunities that you get. So you'll see that there's 73 Western Isles secondary teachers engaging with the subject supports. But there's 21 of these actually in the groups. Okay, so 21 of the groups, 21 of the 26 groups have representation from the Western Isles. I would personally like to see that so that there's representation in every one of the groups. So there's 26 covered from at least somebody, so that when we have our subject specific groups within the Western Isles, somebody's had that opportunity to speak to people from the rest of the Northern Alliance and then can feed back into the other schools. There's the coming together isn't just about kind of sharing, it's about collaborating and looking at what the challenges actually are and what have been on the ground recently. Obviously with COVID and how we moderated all our assessment procedures and things like that was one of the kind of important priorities of people getting together and being able to talk about it. Because in a lot of our schools here in the Collar, there could be one person departments, and they're limited in how they can discuss and interact with people who are specialists in their particular area. So this gives them a great opportunity to just broaden their horizons a little bit and see what happens in different places and then apply it to the local setting, which I think is really important.
So now we're going to the other end of the spectrum, which is community learning and development. And this is a smaller service across the Northern Alliance, and therefore even more important that we're connecting and collaborating, because smaller services feel that sense of isolation more acutely. And certainly what we have is a network of local authority managers for community learning and development, and they meet weekly for a coffee break and monthly to share practice, and also to kind of connect up over key priorities that they may be working on. They've developed a process towards self-evaluation that's really strengthened and built a shared understanding of what high quality community learning and development is. And as a result, there were 4 local authorities in the Northern Alliance who were up for a return inspection visit, and all 4 of those local authorities achieved sign-off, which is fantastic. And certainly Fiona McInnes-Begg from the Western Isles has attributed the support of the Northern Alliance as a real strength and as part of that process. We've got, moving forward, we want to see more of the voice of our young people in how we are taking forward education, and our youth advisory group represents each one of our members of the Scottish Youth Parliament right across the Northern Alliance, and of course we have a member for the Western Isles. And it's our CLD colleagues that work with these young people and make sure that the young people's voices are heard in everything that we do. And moving forward, they are actually, as a result of a combined offer, we're able to offer out access to HNC programmes for people working in youth work and working in communities. Now, that wouldn't have happened for smaller local authorities because there would not have been enough of an uptake. But because of that combined offer, that economy of scale, we've been able to offer out this opportunity to all our CLD colleagues, which is a really successful outcome of collaboration. David?
Thank you. We're also working closely in partnership with eSchool. There's been the creation this year of the digital deputes post, which I'm one of. So that means that time split between the eSchool, 3 days a week eSchool, 2 days a week Northern Alliance. There's 3 other digital deputes, one from Orkney, one from Highland, and one from Aberdeen. So you can see the spread of expertise and different experiences that they would have had that we're bringing in locally to be able to try and have an impact on what's happening in the classrooms here, and also kind of learn from elsewhere and bring it in together. So that's one of the big working changes that's happened with eSchool and Northern Alliance this year. But there's obviously been collaboration previously with looking at, talking about interrupted learners with the iSchool programme, where we can provide support for interrupted learners that we have locally, but we've now spread that out across the Northern Alliance, and there are young people here in the Collar who are getting the benefit of these services that we have from the partnership working with eSchool, and hopefully we can have more of that now that we've got the creation of these new roles that we have.
So moving forward, we've got a diagram here that's fairly simple in its format, but what it does is it outlines the priorities that the Western Isles are taking forward the year ahead, and also the priorities of the Northern Alliance. And it's not by accident that they are linked and that they feed into one another, because we've worked so closely together as groups. And as you saw earlier, our Regional Improvement Forum consists of all the directors and heads of service in all of the 8 local authorities. And what we want is to see our plan continuing to add value and deepen those connections and opportunities for collaboration. So where the Western Isles is focusing on improving the quality of learning and teaching and recognising the rights and needs of our young people, what we're offering is that opportunity to really dig down and understand how we deepen connections to wellbeing and learning through our curriculum and through our practice as teachers. And then how we make sure that when we are working together, that it actually leads to impact. That's what's really important, because collaboration just doesn't happen in the Northern Alliance. It's also happening in schools and in classrooms, working with families, working with learners. So how are we making sure we're doing that even better? And then, of course, we've talked a lot about data this morning. How are we making sure that we're using data best of all to secure those excellent outcomes for our learners? And that's really understanding what those barriers are, first of all, and then using our money, our data and our time much more effectively, combining resources, working together so that we really do break down those barriers together and improve outcomes. And then finally, round about that vital role of leadership, leaders who are set the right culture and conditions for improvement. How are we working together to see how we take that forward, building that focus on leadership, culture, and those shared aspirations for all our learners to improve outcomes for them. So finally, to finish, what I would like to just focus in on, over to you, David, for your final bit.
Thanks. I'm not sure how much people like talking about themselves, but I'm definitely not somebody who likes talking about myself, particularly in a formal setting like this. But anyway, I think it's important that people know that from my experience in leadership roles within the Western Isles, I've got an understanding of where education is in the lay of the land locally. And I also live and have family who are within the system and children who are within the system. And I have a vested interest in making sure that we get the best for the Western Isles. And I think by being able to make the link between eSchool, the Northern Alliance, and what's actually happening in schools, hopefully we can improve these things. So how and the types of things that I'm going to be doing or I'll be responsible for is having regular meetings with team officers and head teachers, which I have had some already. Sharing opportunities with staff directly through head teachers, and also gathering feedback, like what does the Western Isles want within education? What could we help with, and what more could we do? And that's what I'm hoping to try and promote now. Thanks, Kathleen.
Thanks, David. And to finish with, it's just to really summarise through this process what it is that we see how we are adding value. So you can see that we're growing those numbers of colleagues engaging with the Northern Alliance, and as a result, that's opening up a whole range of opportunities for our practitioners and for our learners. And where people are engaging, where they're collaborating, where they're connecting, what they're saying is that it is improving outcomes for learners, and you can see that through the case studies. It's reducing isolation. People feel as if they're able to open up to a wider network of colleagues across the North. And it's building that confidence, because it's amazing the power of just having that meeting in a subject support group where people are on the same page and they understand, and they're also able to boost your confidence to say, no, that's exactly what you need to be doing. And of course, most importantly, how are we working together to solve those problems, to the common challenges, so that outcomes for our learners are improved? We see the opportunity as being, we are able to move forward, being much more effective and efficient with our resources, particularly important as these challenging financial times, and also strengthening the voice of our colleagues right across the North, which is really important. In the past, perhaps our colleagues in the centre of Scotland, voices have been a wee bit louder, but now the voices from the North are growing stronger. So thank you. I'm happy to take questions.
Thanks, Kathleen. Thanks, David. Do members have any questions for Kathleen, David, or Stephen? Switch this on. Councillor Ray McKenzie.
Thank you very much. This was a very full report. I did ask for information about the Northern Alliance some time ago, and it was because it wasn't that I was critical of the Northern Alliance, but it was more my ignorance in what actually it was doing for us. And, you know, today I think I'm convinced that it's doing good. It's obviously very detailed. I was a bit concerned that it was just another layer of, you know, a super super local authority or whatever, you know, but obviously there are benefits all round with communications going back and forth, and experts who may not be available on the ground can be contacted and so forth. So yes, I am convinced. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Does anyone else have any questions? Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. I think I was in amongst with Mr. McKenzie and a bit sceptical about Northern Alliance, but it was through, like he says himself, through ignorance. But thank you very much, both of you, for the presentation. It actually highlights a lot of what it's doing. Can I be a simpleton and actually say that your real role is facilitating collaborative learning? Because as I see it, for some of us who have been teachers would say that, and still have got relatives in teaching profession, would say that teaching can be one of the most isolating jobs. And if you have got somebody who is practicing good pedagogy, as we call it, then it's good to share that. And when they do share that, that's coming. So can I say to you that is that your role as facilitating collaborative learning? The second one is the role of eSchool. Can you see yourselves as the Northern Alliance absorbing eSchool? That's taking the role of the role of actually running eSchool. The gentleman in front of me is I see the back of his hair is coming up when I mention that, and probably the director is saying, well, maybe that's a good way to actually offload it. So just these two questions.
Who wants to answer? Kathleen, to start? Or?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think that's a really good description of part of our role is definitely facilitating collaboration and collaborative opportunities. There's also, I think the way that we look at it is that every local authority understands what they need to do. They set that out within their improvement plan. They measure the progress towards that improvement. And what we are able to do is come along and support how we do that. How we take it forward through improvement activity, through looking at the process, through building the right culture, and as part of that, absolutely collaboration. So it's very much that partnership working, and I suppose moving forward, it's about how we do that more effectively. So, for example, one of the themes that we're looking at doing is bringing together a combined professional learning offer. So at the moment, we've got 8 local authorities, each taking forward a swathe of professional learning opportunities. How about we offer out 8 local authorities making one combined professional learning offer? So somebody in the Western Isles could easily access learning around literacy from Highland, or somebody from Highland learning about play pedagogy or GME within the Western Isles. So it's about that opportunities that we can bring through collaboration that we're exploring moving forward.
And the eSchool part, from my point of view, we're very protective of eSchool. We want to grow eSchool, and it'll be part of a national e-learning offer through the National Digital Board, working closely in partnership, obviously, with the Northern Alliance and team, but we very definitely want to keep eSchool to ourselves in that respect.
Thanks. Sorry, I'll let Stephen, do you want to come in, Stephen, on that? On the eSchool?
I'll just come in, thank you, Chair. Just to say that the eSchool governance is moving forward. It's difficult to know what direction that will take. With as the director has said, with the manifesto commitment for a national digital commitment, a national digital academy. Sorry, but we very much value the support we have from colleagues here locally within the department and also within Kathleen's team in the Northern Alliance as well. If you saw what was quoted on the the PowerPoint slide a short time ago, eSchool was born within the Western Isles as initially designed as a local solution to a local problem, but has very much been nurtured within the Northern Alliance and is very much looking outward, to colleagues from across Scotland in looking to see how we can support the needs of learners and schools, not just here in the Western Isles, but across Scotland, and remove barriers and add value where we can. And I would hope that the collective view within the chamber wouldn't be looking to offload eSchool, but we will continue to do what we're doing, irrespective of how governance may change in the years that come.
Thanks, Stephen. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask if all teaching staff, perhaps within service, had seen that presentation, because I think my worry at the last meeting was that not all teachers in the classroom perhaps were as aware of the opportunities of the Northern Alliance as they could have been, whereas some people were and were making great use of it, but perhaps not everybody was. I thought that was a really helpful presentation, and I would be interested to know had all teaching staff seen it.
In summary, we actually had a area head teacher meeting last week, and we shared it then, and then that we hope that the head teachers then will go back to their schools and share the actual presentation again with their staff.
Thanks, Monica. Any other questions? Oh, Norrie, yeah.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the presentation. Very informative indeed. I'd like to go back to Callum's original suggestion there. I think that if eSchool is one of the few portions of this COLA that actually brings in some revenue, I would hope that we're either going to license it out and charge very heavily for it, or sell it at a very good profit to put something back in the coffer. So if we're going to sell it off, I trust we'll have robust negotiations prior to getting ourselves divested of it. I would like to hope that it continues to bring in revenue to the COLA.
Thanks, all right. Any other questions? Okay, right. I'd just like to thank Stephen, David and Kathleen for coming in and the presentation. It was very, very interesting, and I think it's been very informative to all members. So do members agree to note the report? Okay, so thanks again to the three of you for coming, and it's been very, very good. Thanks again. Right, we'll move on to item 5, unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. This report advises members of the recent developments of.
In private.
Sorry.
Is it normally in private, this item?
Item 4 is in private. We're on item 5.
Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you.
Right. So this report advises members of the recent developments in terms of supporting unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. Children and young people who arrive in the UK unaccompanied and in need of refugee protection should be treated as children and young people first and foremost. Local authorities are legally obliged to provide unaccompanied children with accommodation and safeguarding, at which point they become looked after children or children in receipt of aftercare services and sit within the broader care system. Jack Libby will speak to the report and answer any questions members have. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you, Chair. And you've stole my introduction, so I'll just jump on to the next section, which is, so at the time of writing, Children's Services are supporting 5 unaccompanied asylum-seeking children at this time. This is a new area of work for Children's Services staff. It's both rewarding and challenging. Unaccompanied asylum-seeking children will likely have experienced some form of trauma in their country of origin, will certainly have experienced trauma during their journey to the UK. They then have the challenges of having to begin a new life away from family, friends, and all that is known to them. So the COLA, like all authorities across the UK, are now mandated to receive a certain percentage of unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. The number is variable. It's dependent on the number of crossings of the English Channel, for example. When the weather is good and calm, the numbers are greater. So 2022, we know from what we've seen on the media, it is a a growing issue for our country and for the local authority. And I would just probably like to take this time as well to commend the staff who are having to, I suppose, rise to the challenge of supporting unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. Again, it's a new challenge for them. And as I said, it is rewarding, but it's a steep learning curve. And I am happy to take any questions on the report. I clearly will not go into the finer details of anyone's life in doing so. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Jack. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Mackenzie.
Yeah, just to say this local authority certainly has done its bit and congratulated officials with schemes such as this over the last few years. This is a new one. What appalls me is the treatment that these children were given or had to endure to get here. And I hope, I know that it's been said in the conclusion that, you know, that we're looking into, or not, it's not our decision, but I hope that this is resolved if other cases occur in the near future, because that was ludicrous, the time that it took for these kids to arrive here.
Anybody else? Any other questions? No. Do members agree to note the report? Are we on? Okay, George, sorry.
Thank you. I note with interest, just yesterday, I think Logan Eyre made some kind of declaration about unaccompanied children being able to travel on their planes, rather than that horrendous journey that we heard about the other day, where, what was it, a ridiculous amount of hours in a taxi up to Ullapool and then a ferry for an unaccompanied child or children. So that's really to be welcomed. I think that now common sense is prevailing, really. That's, yeah.
Thanks. Yep, that's very true. Right, okay. Right, so do members agree to note the report? Thank you. But we'll do one more item and then we'll take a break here, quick break. So we'll move on to item 6, which is the Chief Social Work Officer's Report 21-22. This report provides members with the annual report of the Chief Social Work Officer on the statutory work undertaken during the period 1st of April 21 to 31st of March 22. As with previous years, the Scottish Government will produce a Chief Social Work Officer overview report towards the end of the financial year. Jack Libby will speak to the report and answer any questions members have. Thanks, Jack.
Okay, again, thank you, Chair. So the report not only details the activities for the period 21-22, but it's also designed to offer reassurance to the Scottish Government, to members and the wider community that social work and social care services are functioning effectively, and where there are areas for development and improvement, we are aware of them and have a strategy to address said areas for improvement. The report does highlight the main challenge social care and social work has at this moment, and has had for some time actually, one of demographics and workforce recruitment. Great efforts have been taken to, certainly improve or increase the activity around recruitment and retention. It's a lengthy report. I don't want to go into all the finer details of it. I suppose a couple of headlines for myself in terms of children's services are the introduction of Safe Families to the Western Isles. I think it's an excellent project and will derive and help us derive positive outcomes for many vulnerable children and families in our community through the use of our volunteer bank. So that's one thing that I'm certainly very excited about for in terms of 2023 and onwards. Secondly, I just want to touch on the issue of antisocial behaviour and youth offending. you know, admittedly, we have seen an increase of antisocial behaviour and youth offending throughout the reporting period. Some of that could be explained by our children and young people coming out of lockdown and having to readjust to life again, where they can freely go about their interest in the community. And I do think there's more to it than that, though, because if you look at the data over many years, you will see there are peaks and troughs in terms of antisocial behaviour and youth offending. Encouragingly, we have seen a shift in the right direction over recent months. By that, I'll explain the data for May, June, July. Respectively, there were 16, 17 and 13 incidents of antisocial and youth offending behaviour within the community in the Western Isles. For August, September, October, there was 4, 1 and 7 again, respectively. So we are seeing a shift in the right direction. In terms of the wider report, I'm happy to take any questions here, and in addition to these particular points I've just made. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Councillor Fraser.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And can I thank Jack for his very extensive and informative report. It was actually alluding to what he mentioned there at the end of his talk regarding antisocial behaviour. I note that in paragraph 2.8 of the report that our numbers referred to the Scottish Children Reporters Administration on offence grounds is double the national average. I'm sure we'll all agree this is deeply concerning. I know he's mentioned in his view the reasoning behind that. I wonder, Chair, do you think this is a matter that we should bring up at the next meeting of the Community Safety Board with the Chief Inspectors present?
Can I come back now, Chair? So I welcome 2.8 being highlighted. What I would say is I have been in discussions with Police Scotland and SCRA in terms of these figures. What I would say is that there's a story behind the figures. So what you'll find across Scotland is certain things may get reported to SCRA in one area that may not do so in another. There are current discussions taking place between SCRA and the hub in Inverness, Police Scotland's hub, because we do believe that I'm not saying that the data is misleading, but you will find that there are things that will get reported in the north, Orkney, Shetland, the Western Isles and Highlands that may go unreported elsewhere. So I think what's more important is we track our own data longitudinally, because there's more consistency in terms of what's happening in the north in terms of reporting than there is by comparing our data with the rest of Scotland.
Okay, thanks, Jack. In your answer to question, right? Yes, I can speak to the chair of community board and look at getting that brought up, and community safety board, and just get that brought up and just see what, just almost an awareness, and just see if there's anything behind the figures that maybe will help explain things.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll get that done. I'll speak to the chair. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Francis Murray.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank Mr. Libby as well for the report. I wanted to ask, going forward to the I've lost my place. The underspends reported around 4.3, 4.4, 4.5, and this is perhaps where my position is, not having been in this game for very long, may well be completely out. But is there any opportunity there for spending to save with some of these underspends to link in with the medical adaptations, which we come to this afternoon in sustainable development, whereby if underspends can be used, and maybe I'm totally wrong, to make medical adaptations that'll stop people having to go away to off-island care. Is that a possibility, or am I off track completely?
But I would say in response to Councillor Murray's reasonable suggestion is I think that we do so, and I'll bring Anne in, the expert over my right hand shoulder, but I do think we need to be creative with our budgets. For example, we do have underspends as a result of an earlier point I made, which is difficulty to recruit. So, and I think we'll find that across myriad services across the local authority. So what we do need to think about is other ways of deploying that financial resource in such a way that is unrelated to workforce, because there does we will continue to make repeated efforts to recruit, but we also have to accept that if you look at the history, we are going to repeatedly have workforce challenges. So we need to be creative, such as that suggested mid Councillor Murray, in terms of our spend. And if we can keep people in their own home, that is very much a priority across health and social care, and indeed across children's services as well. We should use the budget as flexibly as possible, and even with this ring-fence funding, we should challenge some of the parameters around that where we can, to try and get Scottish Government agreement in terms of how we utilise that funding. Thank you.
Can I just bring Anne in there, please? There's too many lights on here. Can someone just switch your light off, please, Angus, there, and we'll just, in eventually.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that the figures, the underspends relate to last financial year, and we don't have the same financial position this year that we did.
That's
just to say that.
Okay, thanks. I'll just bring in Councillor Ray, because Ray was in ahead of, he's been waiting quite a while, so I'll just bring Ray in next, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. If I can come back, the point made about the 2.8 there, when you think of the figures at Scotland, 11.3, Orkney 12.3, Shetland 3.9, and the Western Isles 20.1. And the point has been made, that this is just about double the Scottish average. And I appreciate what Mr. Libby says, but that amount, and also the point he made about COVID, and things opening out, but kids are the same everywhere. They don't. There's no reason why they should go berserk in the Western Isles once things open out any more than anywhere else. And I agree it should be brought up with the police at the next committee meeting and all the rest. But it's continually been brought up with the police, and things aren't happening now. Something's got to be done as far as this is concerned. The shed is mentioned in the report, and they're doing a fantastic job, obviously, and it's good to see that that's progressing. Pointers is open on a Friday, but not on a Saturday. And is there anything we can do about Pointers to make more use of that? Because obviously it's only working just for a short time. Thank you.
I think there's 2 points I want to make, and I should have probably made certainly point one earlier in my submission. So I do not believe the children and young people of the Western Isles are twice as likely to behave in an antisocial manner or a criminal manner as other children and young people in Scotland.
Excuse me.
No, I'm not.
Just can you put one of you put your lights off? Yeah,
I'm happy to put my light off.
Me too. The point you made, was to the effect that maybe less people are reporting, but the fact is that the figures show. So what's the difference? What's wrong? And if the figures are misrepresenting the situation, then maybe they should be adjusted somehow, but there must be some explanation.
So by way of explanation, if a young person is suspected to be involved in antisocial behaviour or a youth justice matter or actually involved, then the police may or may not submit a report to SCRA. What we understand is that, and this is so it's long-standing practice, and I'm not saying it's neither good nor bad, and the fact that it's consistent is helpful, is that the police in the Northern Division are more likely to report things on to SCRA than possibly the rest of Scotland. So that's why comparing the data across Scotland is probably less helpful than looking longitudinally at our own figures. Now, I suppose the police, by reporting things on that in the Northern Division that may not be reported on elsewhere, they're doing so with the best interest of children in mind. So there's part of a process, but I suppose there's a thing called the whole systems approach, which is an approach that's trying to keep the number of children referred on to SCRA to a smaller number, those are at greatest need or contributing the greatest challenges to a community, because there's a finite resource having to deal and work with these young people. So the more reports that get submitted to SCRA, a result of that may be the more requests that come to social work to complete reports. So it's a way of trying to manage a finite resource. And what I just want to go back to my earlier point. So, I am confident, I hope this offers reassurance, I am confident that the children and young people of the Western Isles are not twice as likely to be involved in antisocial or youth justice behaviours than children in Aberdeen or Dundee or Glasgow. What I would say as well, though, is the majority of antisocial and criminal behaviour in the Western Isles is not undertaken and committed by children, it is by adults. Adults who should know better and adults who should be showing children the way by modelling appropriate pro-social behaviours. And I just want to add one final point, is that what we are seeing across Scotland at the moment, what I'm led to believe by speaking with others in my profession and partner agencies, is an increase in more serious youth crime, for example, violent crime. We are not seeing that, thankfully, in the Western Isles, but we are not complacent. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Do you want to come back quickly there, just very quickly, Ray?
Thank you. There's 2 points. I won't go on about it, but there's 2 points. Well, first of all, I'm sure 95, 99% of the kids in the island, are no problem at all. It's just a very small percentage. So I don't know if that's not really reflected there. But still, I mean, you're referring back to similar situations. But Shetland, if I can come back to that, Shetland is 3.9%. So it's not a case of cities, big cities, or elsewhere in Scotland. It's a similar situation in Shetland. And why should there be that difference? Is it that Shetland are not reporting things or reporting things in a different way? There's only a third of the reporting that we have, or a quarter. So that's hard to understand.
Okay, thank you, Jack.
I would accept that a very small number of young people can affect the numbers significantly. That has always been my experience in this community, and these are the young people that we target our greatest resources at.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Jack, for your report, which is very good. I would only have to say that historically, the point that you've just made, Jack, is something that I experienced a long time ago when I was still a teacher, that there are a few children who can really cause an awful lot of bother and become a huge statistic. Out of, maybe 1,000 children in the Nicholson Institute, you might have just 2 or 3 that are actually causing you real bother. However, the point I wanted to raise, Chair, was in relation to care of the elderly and the budgets around that, and staffing support around that, which is always an issue for us. And my concern that the new proposed National Care Service will take away from us the opportunity we currently have to tailor our service to the needs of the people in our community. Reading through your report, the amount of detail that you give indicates that you know exactly what the situation is, you know what the problem is, and it's very important in my view that we hold on to the ability to run our own service locally. We have tried in recent months to enhance the conditions of service for those who look after people in their own homes and elsewhere. I don't know how successful we've been in that, but it would seem that we are still having issues with having sufficient members of staff to do it. And I do, from time to time, meet members of staff who are involved in the service. And, well, if I use the phrase, they run off their feet, is how they would describe their lives. So I suppose the question I'm going to ask is, how can we protect that service? And how can we enhance the service so that we don't have delayed discharges at all? I do remember at the time when COVID was initiated and the Scottish Government said that everybody had to leave hospitals, that they disappeared from the hospitals in the Western Isles in a fortnight. Now, I have no idea where these elderly people went in that fortnight, but there is a suggestion there, if you can shift them all in a fortnight, why aren't we doing it now? Now that there must be a good a reason why we're not. So, I mean, it's a pretty complicated business, I know, but how can we? What are the best things that we can do to ensure that we've got a service that we can sustain and look after our elderly people?
I'll have to switch up.
Thank you, Councillor McCormack. And I suppose here lies the link with education and children's services. I suppose one of the things that we have to think about tomorrow's workforce and how we encourage 2 things actually. How we encourage today's youth to consider a career in health and social care. There are myriad initiatives underway and have been underway to create a pathway for our young people into said careers. But the young people who are entitled to make their own choices at the end of the day as well. So we can't depend on just our own youngsters. My own view is that we need to be creative in terms of attracting people of a working age to the Western Isles to take up some of these vacant positions. That's what our demographics tell us. And I'm sure we have all been involved in discussions around the demographics and workforce challenges for a number of years now. But to me, it seems that with every year that passes, the challenge becomes greater. And we celebrate, and rightly so, the fact that we're living longer. But by living longer,
Are you looking at me?
no, absolute present company excluded. Long may you reign, Councillor McCormack. So, but no, we do celebrate the fact that we're living longer, but as we live longer, our needs become more complex. And the draw on what is a finite resource becomes greater. So this is where all the different chords of the partnership need to come together, whether it's housing, schools, health services, economic development. They've all got to be heading in the same direction, I would say, in terms of creating a community that has a workforce that is able to provide what it needs. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jack. I'll just bring in the director here as well.
Just by way of encouragement, had an email from Diane MacDonald at the Health Board. So we're having a meeting this week with Kevin Kelman, who is a national director who's working on youth training. And I know that there are 17 young people waiting at the moment to gain work experience through the Health Board from the Nicholson Institute and about 10 in Scarlett Yanaclet. So once we have that meeting, we'll be in a better position in terms of flagging up what the opportunities are, showing what the careers are, and we'll work with our own education skills and training team to ensure that work experience, and I'll share more information in due course.
Yeah, so Councillor Murray, George Murray.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to go back to what Councillor Mackenzie said, and thanks, Jack. I doubt if there's a Stornoway councillor who hasn't had their ears bent about the behaviour of a small group of people, boys and girls, not particularly old, and their general behaviour within the town centre and its environs. I certainly have. People have told me they don't want to walk on the street because of them, and they're still getting off with it. I was parked outside Tesco's just the other day and had a bag of crisps poured over the top of my car. And it was the same faces I see all the time. They seem to be getting off with it and repeating it. And the public are fed up of it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, George. Yeah, I think it's something that we're hearing about quite a bit right now, even down south. Can I just bring in Don McSween next, please, online, because he's been waiting a long time as well. Thanks, Donald.
Tapelov. Diolch i'r chwsbod a sio, ha mi smynioch ha mi siad fi, nid fa mi gwbod gan y chôl yr on y sio, fa mi gwbod côl yr i tor gan y noi cri, sio oi cri a sio. Agus fa sy'n community planning partnership for hyn, hannelas am siach gan y garnish, so yn gan y rwtyn y chwol sy'n gan y hyn, sy'n chod sadafachol, sa community fridge as na Cairns, agus gyfel che o gan y hyn hadda fi y sasan, y fa y gyfrwch y triplatyn ga torio yn iele. Sa mis mynd i'ch gres yn plad fa hasyn, ga yn doi sy'n nwrin gain cwys yn y reitioch as yn coens noch gynagin, gynna fi diolch y dol gan y polish as y fat. Ha fferys gylior fi grab y chor gan y polish a fi jeli gyda i siwt tri sio, ach, chael sy'n nach y jeli gyda yn y symptoms, de ha gyfrwch yn y dylich ydyn sy'n, so, ha mi diolch son yn hwele y fi nach ych bygan agos gyfelopodd fa y dol yn hynach ha ffod o sioch gyfeim tor farwch gyfeir i anu. Tablof.
Thanks, Donald. Councillor McLean. Push it on. Is it going?
Sorry.
Try and push it on again. It's going off. Try the next one. Just might be the connections again. Have all of them gone off? No, it's not that. It's that they've packed up.
Yeah, we'll get IT in.
Right, we'll get IT in to look at it. Maybe we'll just take the break now and and we'll come back to it afterwards and just finish off with this. Is that? Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Okay, Callum, on you go. Oh man. Can someone switch off? Has everyone's got lights on?
Oh, sorry, it's me again.
Yep. Thanks, Callum.
Hello, I've got it. Yes, I'm actually going to agree with what Mr. McCormack has actually said previously to it, and actually see his wise words about the aged population. And I'm looking around me and I'm saying, well, you're pretty close to getting towards what Mr. McCormack is. Yes, I think we should go back to thanks, Jack, for the report. But I think we should go back to put this back to the. And I don't know if John Norman MacLeod is online, but to the Health and Social Care Committee on Friday. I don't know if Jack would be able to be at that meeting, but particularly from 4.1, where he talks about resources there. So if particularly there, because underspends can be a problem, just as much as overspends can be. I'm sure you'd agree with that, because an underspend means that you haven't got the resource in order to have to enable us to carry out the service. But I think that is a problem, and Jack has said there, the demographics of this island are serious. And they're serious actually for our workforce. They're serious in two counts. They're serious that our aged population is increasing and our younger population is decreasing. And therefore the source of our workforce is decreasing therefore as well. So we have a problem, but the problem is that we have to do something about it. Now, some of us have been going on about this for the last 5 years, and this has probably been going on for 10 years. There is something fundamentally wrong with our social care service. And I'm sorry to say this yet again, that it needs looked at, it needs reform. For my own as I've been looking at it for the last couple of years, I believe that we should give more of a distributed leadership into that service, so that in fact those who are carrying out the service have got something to say. But I'm just going to leave it at that. But I think we should.
Thanks, Cal. Yeah,
Thanks,
as I say,
Mr. McCall.
as I was saying, that report, obviously Jack will be taking that report to the social care board later this week. So we can take it up there as well. So make sure that's included. Kenneth, thanks for your patience.
Okay. It was just to go back to sort of young folk and antisocial behaviour, just bringing up because just 3 or 4 days ago, I had some people come to me with quite concerning incidents of young folk down in Barra, shall we say, harassing European nationals with quite vile. Well, I won't repeat what they were saying, but it was, you know, you can imagine or sort of lighting smoke bombs beneath their windows and making them think the house was on fire and all sorts of horrific things. This has happened before, and we've brought it up with the police. The police then pass the buck on to the school. The school bring it up in assemblies and say, look, this isn't right, you shouldn't be doing this. They're met with pupils who go, well, what's it to you? You've got nothing to do with us outside of school time. I'm not really sure what the solution to this is. I'm just highlighting that it's a real issue, and it's sort of gone around in circles a couple of times now. Personally, I feel we just sort of need, excuse the phrase, but Bobby's on the beat. I've never seen that on Barra, but it's reached the point now where I'm thinking we just need a physical presence of police officers in and around Casby. You know, people smashing glass, just kids with bottles for no real reason. Just, I don't know why. And, you know, I get, kids are kids, you know, they're ignorant. It's not 100% their fault. It's just the way it is. And you know, they've nothing to do often. Youth cabbies only open, you know, every so often. You know, what's the phrase? It's the idle hands, devil's plaything, some such thing. I don't know if anything could be done within the school because, again, their remit doesn't really cover this. I've personally had clients come into the cab in tears, talking about this, and they're terrified to go to the police. They don't want to, especially European nationals, they don't want to go to the police because they'll be viewed as kicking up a stink or offending the locals because it's local, you know, children doing it, and they just don't want to touch it and they don't want to go near it. And
Hmm.
sorry, it's more just a comment, just
Yeah.
or just an expression of frustration. But there needs to be something. I don't know if it's with us or the police or the parents or the schools or who, but there needs to be some sort of action. One last sort of minor thing. I don't know if it's the same in other. So the lights go off quite early on down in Barrow, the street lights, and I know people have commented on that not helping issues because they're literally in the darkness doing whatever they want to do. If the streetlights were on, that might actually help deter some of the antisocial behaviour. That's all.
Okay, thanks, Kenneth. Did you want to come back on that, Jack, at all? I see your lights on.
Very briefly,
Yeah,
Chair.
just very briefly, I
Yeah, I appreciate the time constraints. So to offer some reassurance that what's been reported is news to me, and I will take a look at that. And then secondly, I have to say that children and young people aren't ignorant. Children and young people are learning and developing and depend on the adults around them to help them on that journey. And, you know, for the vast majority of children and young people, they get that guidance from within the family. Some of them don't. And that's where schools come into their own, in all honesty. You know, schools make up for a great deal of that, and then the additional services. So just another way of framing it, that they're not ignorant, they're just not journey like the rest of us in terms of learning how society works. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jack. Right, I think we'll conclude that now. So do members agree to note the recommendations at 3:1? Thank you. Right, we'll take a break at 10 minutes. Well, if we come back at 1:15, just because we need to move on here. So yeah, that'd be great. Thanks. mics are working again, are they? Just double check. Just switch on your mics there just to, yeah, looks like we're back in action. Right. So we'll move on to item 7, which is Children's Rights Report 2019 to 2022. This report provides an update on progress with the children's rights agenda in the Western Isles. All local authorities in Scotland are required to report on progress with the children's rights agenda. Children and Young People Scotland Act, the Children and Young People Scotland Act, Part 1, Section 2, Duties on Public Authority. Jack Libby will speak to the report and answer any questions members have. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll be brief. So the CORA, like all other local authorities in Scotland, are required to report on their progress with the children's rights agenda. Children should understand what is happening and feel that they are taking part in the decisions that are being made that affect their lives, whether that relates to themselves as individual children or to them as a collective group. So there are 3 appendices to the report. There's a summary of the articles, what the COLA and partner agencies have achieved over the previous 3 years, and Appendix 3 is what our next steps will be to further comply with the UNCRC requirements. Happy to get any questions, Chair.
Thanks, Jack. Do members have any questions? Nope. Right. So do members agree to the recommendations at 3.1? Thanks. Item 8, temporary increase in kinship and fostering allowance cost of living. This is an urgent report which seeks approval to raise the fostering allowance by 5% due to the cost of living crisis, which impacts on foster carers and kinship carers and the children they care for. Again, Jack will speak to the report and answer any questions members have. Over to you, Jack.
Thank you, Chair. So foster and kinship carers provide a vital service in the community for the most vulnerable children in our community. They provide a family type placement where a residential placement would be unsuitable. Foster and kinship care is also a cost-effective care arrangement compared to that of other children. So in recognition of the cost of living crisis, what we're proposing is a 5% increase in the fostering allowance across the 4 age brackets. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Do members have any questions? Oh no, man. Yep. You're in there.
Nearly.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Francis Murray.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to ask, given everything people are facing, and given, the lack of foster carers, is 5% enough?
Thank you, Councillor Murray. I suppose we need to pitch it at a point, and the point we've pitched it at is the increase, I suppose, in what the employees are in receipt of. I would say in terms of foster carers, Councillor Murray, we have 3 carers currently going through approval, and that's looking very promising. And we've actually got some capacity in our fostering service at the moment. And again, that's very encouraging. What I would say is in terms of kinship care, and we sometimes forget this, we have, from last count, we've got over 3 times as many children in kinship care than we do in foster care. We're very fortunate that in the Western Isles we still have some semblance of extended family networks in the community, and we always look to kinship carers where we can before foster carers. But kinship carers are struggling with these same challenges in terms of cost of living as foster carers and the rest of us. Thank you.
Can I just come in there? At the moment, I think the report's saying, or the recommendation is saying, that we'll raise it 5% now and then look at it again in May. And I'm just wondering if that would be, fine. We just go with that, and then obviously we can review it as we see how things develop and see what people are saying when in relation to costs.
Yes, that does make sense. But, I think food inflation is a big part of it, is much, much higher than 5%. So I would hope that anybody in that situation, particularly the kinship carers, is made aware of other benefits and grants, etc., that they might be able to avail themselves of.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, but we'll keep it 5 for the time being, anyway, just to see how it goes. Right. Are there any other questions? Any other comments anyone wants to bring on? Right. Where are we? So do members agree to the recommendation at 3.1? Yeah. Right. Item 9, Care Experienced Children and Young People Grant, the end of year report 21-22. This report details the work to support the education and learning of care experienced children and young people through the annual reports prepared as part of the Scottish Attainment Challenge. Is Rachel around at all? Is Rachel in the meeting? Okay, so Donald will speak to this report. Thanks, Donald.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Rachel MacDonald had intended to join us for the meeting today, but is on sick leave and wish to note her apologies and is not able to attend today's committee sitting. I'll speak to the report on her behalf and can take any questions from members. The Care Experienced Children and Young People grant funding forms one of the 3 elements of the Scottish Attainment Challenge, 3 different funding streams that come to local authorities. And the purpose of the report was to share the work of the Care Experienced Children and Young People worker and the use of that grant funding. It appends the report that was provided to Scottish Government on the work undertaken in the 21-22 academic year, and it sets out. It had to some degree to be anonymised because a lot of the work that the CECYP worker does is in one-to-one and in close family work. So there may be elements where I can't go into a lot of detail, but hopefully the report itself provides some information about the sense of the work that the Care Experienced Children and Young People worker does. As the funding comes through from the Scottish Attainment Challenge, it's particularly and specifically focused to supporting any issues around attainment, participation, inclusion that care experienced children and young people may face. And the report provides a little bit of background and then a copy of the report to Scottish Government appended. And I'm happy to take questions from members about that.
Thanks, Tom. Does anybody have any questions or comments? No. Okie dokie. So do members agree to the recommendations at 3.1? Thanks. Right, we'll move on to item 11. We've done 10. So Education Senior Phase Attainment 2022. This report advises members about the senior phase performance in national qualifications in the 21-22 session. I will ask Mr. Donald MacLeod to speak to the report before opening this for wider discussion. Thanks, Donald.
Thank you, Chair. I'm conscious of time, so I won't go into a significant amount of detail about the content of the report, and hopefully in and of itself it'll be self-explanatory to members. This report is a continuation of a previous report that was taken to the last sitting of the committee in light of the fact that since then the Scottish Government has published the latest information in the Insight National Benchmarking Tool, which was explained in a previous report, is an analytical database that allows schools to and local authorities to provide a lot of analysis around performance in national qualifications. So the report takes through some headline information in relation to that. I do need to note significantly at 5.2 the caution that remains around all national qualifications at the moment in terms of benchmarking, and that across the last 4 years there have been 4 different accreditation models in place, and that significantly affects any ability to undertake any comparative trend analysis. The report sets out the performance across the national qualifications in general, and then provides information in relation to English and maths particularly, including breakdowns across gender, which does provide interesting analysis that schools are taking further in their own work. Then the report provides further information in relation to a particular measure within the Insight report, which is the attainment in literacy and numeracy combined, both literacy and numeracy combined for children at SCQF levels 4 and 5, and changes that have taken place in terms of the attainment in these areas. Within that as well, it goes on to break down that performance across gender, across additional support needs, and across free school meals as an important indicator of potential poverty-related attainment gap. So I'm happy to take any questions from members in relation to the detail of the report.
Do members have any questions? Okay, no, doesn't look like it. So do members agree to note the report? Item 12, National Improvement Plan, Annual Report, Plan and Stretch Aims. This report advises members of the annual statutory report and plans for the National Improvement Framework and associated Scottish Attainment Challenge Stretch Aims report. The Standards in Scottish Schools Act 2000 places a statutory duty on education authorities to publish a plan annually and furthermore to publish a report on progress with its previous plan. And Donald again will speak to the report. Thanks, Donald.
Excuse me. Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is a report being brought forward to members today in compliance with our statutory requirements to produce an annual education report and plan set out in 2.1 and also addresses the amended requirements of the 2016 Act that specifically sets out the requirement in terms of addressing the National Improvement Framework. The report and plan itself is appended. And in addition to that, this year is a new element that was introduced and described in paragraph 2.3 in relation to the publication of Scottish Attainment Challenge Framework for Recovery and Acceleration of Progress, which set out requirements on all 32 local authorities to report on a common set of stretch aims annually. 5 common stretch aims that are common to all 32 local authorities, and also in addition to that, a mechanism to allow local authorities to determine a number of stretch aims of their own. So that's a new requirement within the reporting for the current year, and the first iteration of our stretch aims report is also included in appendices to the report. The report itself sets out the context around the planning for the National Improvement Framework and the requirements of the report that we had, and also some detail around the setting of stretch aims, which were a particular challenge to us as a local authority because, again, policy set nationally did not treat us kindly in that way, specifically in terms of the requirement of stretch aims to evidence closing or reduction of the poverty-related attainment gap. And in doing so, the national measures required us to use the Scottish Index of Multiple Deprivation and specifically quintiles 1 and 5 of that measure, a measure that does not at all reflect the situation of the poverty gap in the Western Isles. We have no children in these measures and therefore we cannot meaningfully report on them. And as a result, working with colleagues in other authorities in similar circumstances, agreed with Scottish Government that we would be reporting using free school meal based data, which is a reasonable indicator, but is not necessarily 100% accurate in its own way, partly due to the universal entitlement of free school meals in primary 1 to 5, and also in matters of low uptake across the Western Isles. So whilst it is an indicator, it's not necessarily a comprehensive and reliable one. In addition, some of the stretch aims that were identified across all 32 local authorities were not necessarily hugely applicable in the Western Isles, partly due to the population demographic and so on, but we were required to report on these. And the 2 appended reports to this give the full detail, and happily take questions from members.
Thanks, Donald. So do members have any questions? Councillor McLean.
Thanks, Chair. Can I refer down to section in priorities section 2 of the appendix 12B, progress in achieving national framework priorities in 2021-22, an improvement in children and young people's health and well-being. And the item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5th bullet point there, it says a new RSHP program programs have been developed for schools that reflect local context and take account of national policy. Later on in the report, it does say that Uist and Para programs has been implemented, and the Lewis and Harris one is nearing completion. Now, in 2020, there was an amendment made in this chamber that the or commend the use of the age and stage appropriate materials set out by the Scottish Catholic Education for the teaching of RSHP. So that was against a motion that recommended the RSHP.Scot materials, revised materials. So what I just want to ask is, I've been involved with the 2 executive heads when I was taken in to have a look at some of the material. Can I get the assurance that the material that is in the RSHP.Scot material, which is what many people have said and which councillors at that time said was offensive, pornographic to the extent, to some extent, I would say as to many an extent actually, that none of that material will be included in the new RSHP program. In other words, that there will not be, that parents can be assured, and we have this in another school already, as Donald, you know, that parents are very anxious about whether in fact the material that is in RSHP.Scot, that material is not being used in our schools, the Western Irish schools, which was the amendment, the commendation in November 2020. So I'm just asking for that assurance that none of that material that I would say is even what I would say when recommended to be used by schools. Just getting that assurance.
Can you just switch your mic off, please, Angus? Yeah, we'll bring you in. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor McLean, for your question. The predominant driving factor for the development of the RSHP resources locally has been the curriculum and the relationship sexual health and parenthood curriculum that sits within CFE. It's not developed around any one particular resource. It is developed from what the curriculum sets out for schools and for teachers to deliver at appropriate age and stage. In doing so, and I believe Councillor McLean had the resources shared in discussion with executive heads, it makes use of a number of resources, and in some cases that does reference aspects of what's available in RSHP.Scot, among many other resources that are available, and there has been significant judicious consideration around the suitability of age and stage appropriate material when that has been drawn up to support schools in the delivery of the RSHP curriculum.
A good political answer. I have to be quite honest with you, because at the end of the day, the RSHP.Scot material, as it says, has one aim, and that aim is to tell pupils that they can be what they want to be, and that runs through the whole thread of that resource. And in the age we're in, I would say that's a dangerous concept. But that's a personal view of that. So I would say that it was quite categoric, the amendment. It really was. And to say then that the RSHP, some of the stuff is included, and I have seen some of the schools, but the schools it hasn't been rolled out in Lewis schools, fortunately. And I know that the two executive head teachers are doing diligent work on it. But I get that suspicion that if it even comes in a little degree, and that degree is to my mind some of the photographic content, especially to primary 6, primary 5, 6, is to me is not appropriate. But that's a personal. But I still think that we have to. The amendment was categoric. And yet we're still referring to some of the material, the RSHP.Scot material. And that is what I'm afraid of.
Can you try again, Angus? Yeah, because it's doing my head in. This is no, the wrong one. That would help if I press the right button.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor McLean, for your comments. And I do hope that we can demonstrate in the consultation that's taking place around the resources that the executive head teachers have been developing for Lewis and Hatta schools, that we have taken significant account of both the amendment agreed at the 2020 meeting and also the requirements of the curriculum and the expectations of parents and carers, and very importantly, children and young people themselves as well. It is a difficult and challenging area of policy, and we recognise that very much. And a fundamental element of what we are committing to do is to consult with every invested party prior to the undertaking of any learning and teaching in this area. And that's a cornerstone of the work that's been developed by the executive head teachers. So, and lessons are learned from where that has not been successful in the past, making sure that parents, carers and children and young people understand the content of the curriculum that's to be covered, that people agree that it's appropriate, and also where there is any issue of concern in relation to what parents may express, they have the right to feed that back and also retain the right to withdraw their own children and young people from the delivery of that aspect of the curriculum if they so deem that they wish to do so. So we're trying to respect many different competing and pressure demands around that. But we hope that with an air of openness and transparency that we can move forward in the delivery of this important area of the curriculum.
Yeah, just very quickly. Yes, Chair, I do hope that we can come to a consensus on this, and I believe we can. But one of the reasons for the amendment was that so that parents didn't have to withdraw their children from this. If we can get to that stage, that we can all be comfortable with what the children are being taught, that would be a good outcome. Thanks.
And can I just ask, Councillor, had you been working with executive heads on that?
I've been at one meeting and early on this session, and they're doing a wonderful job. I must be honest, it's a difficult area. I agree with what Donald says. It's a very difficult area, but we have to be respectful about it as well, and be very diligent as to what is included in our children's education. But they're doing a good job as far as I can see. I can only commend them for it, and we're still working together on it. Still, as you see, it's not complete yet because of the difficulties.
Work in progress, obviously. Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot.
I've almost forgotten what I was going to say. Donald made reference in his remarks to free school meals, and I am very concerned from the poverty aspect of just how well we're doing in establishing an appropriate list of children who are taking free school meals. It's been kind of camouflaged by the fact that the first 5 years are free anyway, but we must make sure that all children who would in the past have been eligible for school meals sign up for these, because that means they're then eligible for other support like school uniform, for example. So just wondering if you have any idea how you're getting on with that.
Thank you, Councillor McCormack. Thank you, Councillor McCormack, should I say. Yes, it's an area that we're very, very conscious of. It's an important area for us in a lot of different ways. As you say, fundamentally and most importantly, it's about making sure that we are doing everything we can to get the help that young people are entitled to the right people at the right times. And that has been challenging for us in terms of uptake of free school meals, as you say, partly masked by the universal entitlement for P1 to 5. We have been working with trying to contact families that have been previously eligible to make sure that they continue to reapply, encouraging families who haven't undertaken an application previously to do so, working with DWP and Social Security Scotland to flag up entitlements and support completion of applications. We've been working to identify younger siblings of those who have already applied. Very often a family will apply for one child who isn't in the universal entitlement, and we're using our schools databases to backtrack through siblings and relatives to make sure that we capture the details of younger siblings that are in the universal entitlement so that we can recognise them too. We're also recognising that with changes coming up in terms of bridging payments and child support payments, that's moving from being linked to free school meals to being a separate application through Social Security Scotland, that we're planning some media and promotion around that and pushing out information to parents and trying to cover as many different sort of media sources and sources of sharing of information as we can to make sure that everyone is aware of their entitlements, and we do everything we can to support them. We've moved all our applications online. We've previously issued applications by post to all families, and we are doing, I believe, what we can to try and increase that uptake. But it is challenging, and it's something that's going to be a continuous piece of work for us. It's not going to be something that's just going to be a single exercise. It's going to have to be a piece of work that we continue to recycle and renew and refresh our promotion around to make sure that as many families as possible are taking that uptake forward. It's also important for us practically in terms of the funding that we receive. It's very often calculated around free school meal uptake. And as I've mentioned in the reference to the Stretch Aims report, free school meals is the only indicator available to us. Whatever opinions people have about its reliability or otherwise, it's ultimately one of the only measures that we have available to us to give an indication of how poverty is impacting on attainment. And as a result of that, we need to have as accurate a suite of information as we can about who that actually affects. So very much take on board Councillor McCormack's points, and we do recognise the importance of continued promotion and uptake.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, Donald. There was just one other thing that came to my attention recently, and you may have made reference to it just now. Am I right in thinking that if DWP have a list of families where children might be eligible, that we can automatically access that list?
I'd have to double check that, Councillor McCormack, with the colleagues that lead on that work. I know we've had issues in the past in terms of data protection and GDPR about sharing information between agencies, but that's something I don't have the information for here, but can check that out and get back to Mr. McCormack in relation to it.
Okay, thanks, Donald. Do anybody in any other points? Okay, in that case, we'll do members agree to the recommendations at 3-1? Okay, thanks. We'll move on to item 13, and that's support for local sports councils. This report seeks approval for continued financial support for the local sports councils. The local sports councils are continuing to operate grant aid programme that provide valuable assistance to local clubs and organisations. The Lewis and Harris Sports Council and the Euston Barrows Sports Council have submitted grant applications to enable the organisations to provide a range of grant options for affiliated clubs and associations. Ian Gigi Campbell will speak to the report and answer any questions. Thanks for your patience, Gigi. See that?
Hi. There. I'm still here. Yes, thanks, Chair, and thanks for the introduction of the report. So it's pretty self-explanatory. The two sports councils are well established now, and this has devolved grant funding to our two sports councils, who are very experienced in distributing the grant funding as described. The recommendation is for 13,000 to the Lewis and Harris Sports Council and 8.5 for the Euston Barrows Sports Council. They have some reserves left from COVID, but the demand is significantly increased over the last 12 to 18 months, and they have offered concessions to their grant maximums to enable to help clubs get back to normal, and the uptake is substantial now. Can I just also take an opportunity that I should have added an item to the performance management report to congratulate Marceline Macaulay, first year pupil at Lenaclit, on her success at the Scottish Disability Sport National Swimming Championships last month or earlier this month. It was her first event, and she won 2 golds and 1 bronze medal at the championships, which was a phenomenal result for her, and we wish her well in future attempts to add to that in the future.
Thanks, Gigi. Yeah, that's a great achievement. Does anybody have any questions for Gigi? Just Councillor MacDonald.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate what Gigi has said there about particularly in our disability sport as well as able-bodied sport, which we've been supporting over the years. It's fantastic to see Marcelly's success, and also as well another success, a council employee from your own neck of the woods, Kenny Cuna Morrison, who will be captaining Europe in the Disability Golf Ryder Cup in America this coming year. So the support that the corner give via Top Slicing Crown Estate has been invaluable, and we will hopefully, I'm a member of the Lewis and Harris Sports Council, we will be hopefully distribute as much as we can in support of our athletes going forward, And it's great to see now that it's the success that's coming back, not only amongst able-bodied but disabled sports participants as well. It's been fantastic over the years, and this continuation will enable us to continue and do more work. So thanks very much for that.
Thanks, Noel. Yeah, I'll just follow up from that as well. I mean, obviously, the money that goes out, what it achieves in terms of its value for money, it's incredible actually. How much the islands punch above their weight in terms of sports. So yeah, definitely, it's really important one. Donald Sween online.
Thank you. Just a quick one, a word of thanks, really. So if Nori didn't have to declare an interest in these on the Sports Council, I don't have to declare an interest in being the manager of NES, so that's fine. But between the travel assistance and also the Crown Estate funding for clubs using corner facilities for free, I think these two things have been fantastic. And last night we had a training session, NES Football Club had a training session on the AstroTurf in Stornoway, and some of the boys were like, are we paying for this at all? And last night was the first time it actually clicked for them that the stuff they hear about on the on Hebrides News or whatever actually filters down. And I think particularly this winter, when people are feeling the pinch in all kinds of ways, that not having to worry about individuals, not having to worry about whether or not they can attend sports because of financial pressures, and clubs not having to worry about having to find an extra few £100 over the winter. I think it's really welcome. So great news, Gigi, and I'm happy to support this.
Thanks, Donald. So with that, do members agree to the recommendations at 3-1? Thanks. Loud agreement on that one, was good. So we'll move on to reports outstanding. Do members agree to note the report? Thank you. The next scheduled meeting of this. Yeah, do you want to do that first? Yeah, all right. We'll do the private item first. And so we're just about to move into private to study item 4. Thank you.